The U.S. command in South Korea has ordered all American troops in the country to curtail any travel away from their bases in order to avoid any involvement in the rioting and anti-government demonstrations in South Korea. And the State Department today formally warned North Korea not to try to exploit the troubles in the South. Peter?
Frank, in South Korea itself today, the southernmost province remains in turmoil. Military authorities say there is violence in 16 provincial towns, and a small war has been fought in the provincial capital of Kwangju. The new prime minister has appealed for the citizens to lay down their arms. The most militant anti-government groups have demanded he resign. It is a situation, as Mark Litke reports, very difficult to defuse.
Thousands of anti-government protesters are in complete control of Kwangju City, moving through the streets of the provincial capital in commandeered army vehicles, many carrying weapons from an overrun government armory, ammunition handed out freely in the open. For the Koreans demanding an end to martial law here and freedom for the jailed opposition party members who come from this region, the price has been high. Reportedly, 61 dead, almost all of them civilians. The military showed willingness to hold back its 17,000 troops in the area and consider demands from the protesters, including no retaliation and admitting the troops used harsh tactics during the riot. Protest leaders reportedly began to encourage citizens to turn in their weapons and help restore order. Korean authorities will not allow this takeover to last for long, and it's felt here that negotiation may be the only way to avoid a bloodbath. Mark Litke, ABC News, Seoul, Korea.
Elsewhere overseas, reports from Afghanistan of more anti-Soviet demonstrations in the capital. Schoolgirls, for at least the second time.
After 4 days of fighting, armed rebels appear firmly in control now of the South Korean provincial capital of Kwangju and the area around it. The rebels are opposed to last week's military takeover of the Seoul government and the imposition of martial law throughout the country. Bruce Dunning is there.
So severe was the fighting in Kwangju that the outnumbered army and police forces had to withdraw, leaving the city to its citizens. Western newsmen who managed to get into the city found themselves applauded and cheered by the crowd. But the atmosphere is heavily tinged with danger. The rioters have commandeered police vans, army trucks, even armored vehicles. They broke into armories, and most of the young men now controlling the city are armed with loaded carbines and rifles. Supplies of ammunition seem plentiful. The battered vehicles carry the South Korean flag, for these people consider themselves patriots, opposing the generals who seized power last weekend. Earlier rumors of several dozen killed in the rioting are proving true. Many of the dead are civilians, apparently shot in the face at close range or bayoneted. The insurrection has spread to other parts of southwestern Korea. Demonstrators from Kwangju were cheered as they sought support in farming villages. Recruits jumped aboard commandeered buses and trucks to join the crowds back in Kwangju. The people of Kwangju seem flush with victory. They are standing firm on their demands that martial law be ended and that their local political hero, Kim Dae-jung, be released from jail. The generals consider this unacceptable. The two sides are negotiating, however, and the newly named prime minister made a promise in a nationwide broadcast to find a solution quickly. Both sides seem to realize that any attempt to regain control of the city by force would be a bitter, bloody fight. Bruce Dunning, CBS News, Kwangju.
In Washington, the State Department warned North Korea that the United States will react strongly if there's any attempt to exploit the unrest in the South. A watered-down trade embargo against Iran by 8 of the 9 European common.
There have been 5 straight days of anti-government violence in the South Korean city of Kwangju. Demonstrators led by university students fought police and army units. Yesterday, the demonstrators took control of the city. Today, student leaders arranged a truce with army units ringing the city, and tonight they are trying to get their followers to lay down their arms. Jim Upshaw tells us what it was like today in Kwangju.
After 5 days of violence in Kwangju, no one can explain the bloodshed, which has brought medical personnel streaming in to treat not only people shot or bayoneted by soldiers, but also citizens wounded evidently at random by other citizens. Many are dead. No one knows how many are dead because the city still is too dangerous for a body count. Armed young men under no apparent organization rule the streets. With stolen army weapons and commandeered vehicles, they are unchallenged. The soldiers here so far are outnumbered. All of this stemmed from anti-government feelings and resentment against the discrimination this province always has suffered. But now, slogans are less important than guns, and those who have guns know that soon the Army will be coming for them. Today, the Army began to surround Kwangju. The main road into the city became a staging area for what looks like a planned invasion. Helicopters brought in rations, ammunition, and machine guns. C-123 cargo planes came with more supplies. Even jets flew over, a show of force. Frightened citizens of Kwangju walked out to safety. Each one had a story. This man said the original student rioters have given way to a tougher crowd, which has mounted machine guns on vehicles and is waiting for the Army. Already this week, troops in Kwangju have opened fire on civilians, killing several. Unless the military shows great restraint, what happens next could be worse. Jim Upshaw, NBC News, near Kwangju, South Korea.
Today, the United States warned North Korea not to take advantage of the unrest in South Korea. At the same time, the Pentagon said it had given South Korean commanders permission to withdraw some Korean soldiers from the Joint Korean-American Command and use them to help control the cities. Richard Valeriani reports on how the situation in South Korea affects American troops there.
About 38,000 American troops are on duty in South Korea, all of them stationed far from the area of disturbances. U.S. officials say they have not been put on alert, but 2 specially equipped radar planes have been sent to Okinawa to keep an eye on North Korean air activity. State Department officials said there is no evidence of military movements by the North Koreans so far, but spokesman Harding Carter nevertheless warned them not to interfere.
We reiterate that the U.S. government will react strongly in accordance with its treaty obligations to any external attempt to exploit the situation in the Republic of Korea.
Officials here believe that military hardliners in South Korea are seizing on the political turmoil to halt progress toward democratic reforms. A special presidential committee met at the White House this afternoon to study what the United States can do to help restore civilian rule in South Korea and revive the process of political liberalization. Richard Valeriani, NBC News, at the State Department.